In the underground economy of Vancouver's financial district, invisibility was the most sophisticated survival strategy Iris Calloway had ever mastered. She had refined it over 4 years. The deliberately oversized blazers from Value Village, the reading glasses she didn't actually need. The way she pulled her copper-brown hair back so severely it flattened every interesting thing about her face. Her colleagues at Marchetti Capital assumed she was somewhere between 35 and 50. She was 29, and she had worked very hard to maintain that ambiguity. The less anyone looked at her, the safer she was. The less anyone looked at her, the better she could see them. And in this particular world, seeing clearly was the only real power that mattered. Marchetti Capital wasn't a bank. Not technically. It processed money for people who couldn't walk into a BMO branch without their lawyers present, and it did so through a labyrinth of shell companies, numbered accounts, and strategically timed wire transfers that Iris had designed herself. She had a mathematics degree from UBC and a gift for pattern recognition that bordered on unsettling. She had also, in 4 years, never once been thanked for it. Her employer knew her as Miss Calloway. Sometimes, when he was distracted, he called her the numbers woman. His name was Ronan Voss, and he ran the most sophisticated financial operation west of Toronto. He was 41, lean in the way that suggested he'd stopped sleeping regularly, sometime in his early 30s, and he had the kind of face that made people trust him slightly more than they should have. He was also, Iris had concluded after approximately 2 weeks on the job, the most dangerous person she had ever met, not because of what he did, but because of how casually he did it. He did not know she could read Mandarin. He did not know she had memorized the routing patterns of every account she'd ever touched. He did not know that the small green notebook in her desk drawer contained a handwritten record of every transaction she had ever processed, including 6 that she was fairly certain constituted federal wire fraud. Iris was not planning to do anything with that notebook. She was simply the kind of person who documented things. It was a habit. It made her feel, on the difficult days, like she existed. The difficult days had been coming more frequently lately. It was a Tuesday in late October when everything cracked open. The rain was coming sideways off Burrard Inlet, and the office tower on West Georgia was swaying in that barely perceptible way that 40-story buildings sway in Pacific storms. Iris was alone on the 14th floor at 9:47 p.m., which was not unusual. She stayed late because the office was quiet and the work was easier without men walking past her desk, pretending not to notice she was still there. She was cross-referencing a series of transfers routed through a Luxembourg intermediary when she heard the elevator. Not the main elevator. The private one, the one that required a key card she technically wasn't supposed to have access to, which opened directly into the executive corridor behind her. She had a copy because Ronan's previous assistant had trusted her with it 18 months ago, before abruptly leaving for reasons no one discussed. She heard 2 voices, then a third, then the unmistakable sound of something heavy being dragged. Iris did not move. She understood, with the particular clarity that arrives when adrenaline replaces all abstract thought, that whatever was happening on the other side of that glass partitions was something she was not meant to witness. She also understood in the same instant that the lights at her workstation were on, and she had left her coffee cup on top of the filing cabinet that was visible from the corridor. The voices stopped. Someone's been in the records room, a man said. Iris recognized the voice. It wasn't Ronan's. She had 7 seconds, maybe 10, before they came around the corner. She took her notebook. She took her phone. She did not take her coat, which was a decision she would regret for several hours. She moved to the emergency stairwell at the east end of the floor, and she did not run because running made noise, and noise was the one thing she could not afford. She made it to the 12th floor before she heard the door above her bang open. What happened in the next 4 minutes, Iris would later describe to herself as the most efficiently terrible experience of her adult life. She went down. They went down faster. She cut through the 10th floor into the main corridor and ducked into the server room because it was the only door she had a key for, the only place in the building where a woman of her particular dimensions could reasonably disappear behind a rack of humming black equipment. She pressed herself against the back wall and pulled the rack slightly toward her. The server room door opened. Clear, someone said. It closed. Iris did not breathe for a very long time. She became aware in the dense dark between the server racks that someone else was in the room. She became aware of this because the someone else had been aware of her first and had chosen, very deliberately, not to say anything when the door was opened. Miss Calloway, said Ronan. His voice in the dark was completely level. Mr. Voss, she said. How long have you been here? 30 seconds longer than you, I think. A pause, the servers hummed. The ventilation system pushed cold air across the back of her neck. Did you see anything? I heard things, she said. I didn't look. Another pause. This one was different. She could feel him recalibrating something. That's either very smart or very unlucky, he said. I'm generally one of those things, Iris said. I'll let you decide which. She couldn't see his face. She was glad of that. She had spent 4 years avoiding Ronan Voss's face when he looked at her directly, because the few times he had, she'd felt something in her chest go sideways in a way she found professionally inconvenient and personally humiliating. Men like Ronan Voss did not look at women like Iris Calloway. She understood this the same way she understood tax law, thoroughly and without sentiment. They stayed in the dark for 22 minutes. She knew because she timed it. At some point, he moved from the far wall to her side of the rack because the footsteps toward the door at minute 16 had sent him backward into the narrower space. She was aware of the warmth of him in a way the server room's climate control couldn't account for. She was also aware that he was breathing slowly and deliberately, the way people breathe when they are trying very hard to think. Your notebook, he said finally. Her hand tightened on it. What notebook? The green one. You've been writing in it since your 3rd week. Iris said nothing. I'm not angry, Ronan said. I want you to understand that. I'm not angry because you're the only person in this building who has ever made me nervous, and I find I can't be angry at the one person here who's actually paying attention. She didn't know what to do with that. She had prepared over 4 years for several possible versions of this conversation. In none of them had he said something that felt genuinely like a compliment. What was being dragged, she asked. Equipment. What kind? The kind that doesn't file paperwork, he said. Iris absorbed this. There's a federal audit scheduled for the 15th, she said. The Luxembourg transfers from August are going to create a discrepancy in the reconciliation. I flagged it in September. Your CFO signed off and ignored it. Silence. How do you know about the audit? Ronan asked. I read emails, she said. You never changed the access permissions from the original account setup. That was 4 years ago. I've always had visibility into the executive communications folder. The silence that followed was the longest of the night. Iris, he said. It was the first time he had ever used her first name. Something happened in her chest that she immediately suppressed. The discrepancy is fixable, she said, because that was safer than acknowledging that he had used her name. I already ran the correction 3 weeks ago. It's sitting in a draft. I didn't submit it because your CFO outranks me, and I wasn't sure if the original filing was intentional. Was it fixable before tonight? Yes. Why didn't you tell me? Because, Iris said very carefully, In 4 years you have never once come to my desk and asked me how I was doing. You have referred to me as the numbers woman in front of clients on at least 6 occasions. You have never learned that I take my coffee without sugar, even though I make yours every morning, and it has never once changed. I am invisible in this building, Mr. Voss. Invisible people don't walk into executive offices and announce that they've been quietly managing the legal exposure for a criminal enterprise. The servers hummed. The ventilation pushed cold air. You take your coffee without sugar, he said. I take my coffee without sugar. Another pause. Then no, you do. That should not have mattered. Iris told herself very firmly that it did not matter. A man acknowledging how she took her coffee was not a meaningful event in the life of a person with her qualifications and her particular set of survival instincts. And yet something about the way he said it, not as information but as a confession, made her breath catch in a way she did not find convenient. They were very close together in the dark. This was a practical problem caused by server rack placement, and not a situation either of them had engineered. She was telling herself this for the 3rd time when the footsteps came back down the corridor and someone tried the server room door. The handle turned. The lock held. Neither of them breathed. 3 seconds, 10. The footsteps moved on. Ronan exhaled and she felt it, the warmth of it, because the space between them had reduced at some point in the last 20 minutes to something she couldn't measure without moving, and moving was not an option. The correction draft, he said. Where is it? Local drive subfolder marked Archive Q3 Miscellaneous. The file is called Formatting Test 4. A sound that was almost a laugh, not quite. Of course it is, he said. I named it that in case someone went through my files. Someone did go through your files. I know, Iris said. I have folder access notifications turned on. It was your CFO in March. He didn't find anything because I keep the things that matter in places that look like they don't matter. Ronan was quiet for a moment. How long have you been doing this? He asked, and there was something in his voice she hadn't heard before. Not suspicion, not the cool executive register he used for everything. Something rougher. Something that sounded almost like he was asking a different question entirely. Protecting myself, she said. Since I was 8 years old, it's not specific to you. He didn't respond to that immediately. She was grateful. She hadn't meant to say it. We need to get out of this building, Ronan said. Yes. The east stairwell opens to the parkade. My car is on level 2. If we move in the next 4 minutes, the corridor cycle resets and there's a window. I know the cycle, Iris said. I timed it once when I was working late and got nervous about being alone here. When was that? About 2 years ago. 2 years ago, he repeated, and the quality of his voice was strange again, like he was doing arithmetic and not enjoying the answer. Right. They moved at 10:23 p.m. She knew the cycle. She was right about the window. They were in the parkade and then in his car, a charcoal Volvo, which surprised her. She'd assumed something louder, and then on Granville Street heading south before she fully processed that she was sitting in Ronan Voss's passenger seat in her work clothes without her coat, while it rained hard enough to turn the windshield into static. Where do you live? He asked. She told him he drove. For 11 minutes, neither of them spoke. The city moved past in streaks of amber and white. She watched the rain on the glass and thought about the green notebook in her hand, and what it contained, and what he would probably have to do about it, now that they had spoken to each other like actual people. The notebook, she said. Keep it, he said. She looked at him. It's yours, he said. You built it, it's yours. You understand what's in it. I understand exactly what's in it. He kept his eyes on the road, Yaz. The muscle in his jaw moved. It's insurance. You're not stupid enough to leave yourself without any. No, she agreed, I'm not. I've known that for 3 years, he said. That you weren't stupid. He stopped. Started again. There are people in that building who underestimate you on purpose because it's useful to them. I want you to know that I have never been one of those people. Iris looked out the window. You called me the numbers woman, she said. In front of clients who would have found you more threatening than me if they knew what you actually did, he said. Which, in retrospect, was a calculation I made without asking you. I'm aware that's not. Another stop. I'm aware that doesn't make it right. She didn't know what to say. She had a very good vocabulary, and she genuinely did not know what to say. He pulled up in front of her building on West 10th. The rain was easing slightly. The streetlight turned her hands amber. The 15th is 2 weeks away, she said. I know. The correction needs to be submitted by the 12th at the latest to process in time. I know. Your CFO is going to be a problem. I'm aware, Ronan said. He's going to be significantly less of a problem by Thursday. She nodded. She reached for the door handle. Iris, he said. She stopped. Thank you, he said. For the 4 years, I should have said it a long time before tonight. She held the door handle. She thought about 4 years of invisible mornings and overlooked afternoons and evenings, alone on the 14th floor, with the numbers that held his empire together. She thought about the green notebook. She thought about what it cost a person, over time, to be very good at something in a room full of people who had decided not to see it. Submit the correction yourself, she said. Sign your name to it. That's what I want. He looked at her. Done, he said. She got out of the car. The rain hit her immediately. She didn't hurry. She was on the 3rd step of her building's front walk when she heard the window come down. You didn't ask how I take my coffee, he said. She turned around. Black, she said. Since February of the year you stopped sleeping properly. You switched, I noticed. In the amber light and the easing rain, Ronan Voss looked at Iris Calloway the way people look at things they have walked past 100 times and suddenly, finally, actually seen. She went inside. She put the kettle on. She sat at her kitchen table with the green notebook, and she opened it to the last entry, and she wrote the date and 2 words. He noticed. She closed the notebook. She thought about the expression on his face in the light from the street lamp, and she thought about 4 years, and she thought that sometimes the most dangerous thing a woman could do was simply continue to be exactly who she was until the room ran out of reasons to look away. In the morning, the correction had been submitted. Ronan's name was on it. In the afternoon, a new coffee appeared on her desk. No sugar, a yellow sticky note attached in his handwriting. Not a memo, not a formal request, just 4 words. Don't disappear on me. Iris read it twice. She put it inside the green notebook between 2 pages that had never needed protecting. Then she went back to work. There's a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from being good at something in a room full of people who've decided not to notice. I've felt it. Most of us have, I think. That slow burn of showing up, doing the work, holding things together quietly while everyone around you takes credit for the architecture you built in the dark. Iris didn't set out to be invisible. She chose it deliberately as a strategy because she understood the environment she was in and she adapted to survive it. That's not weakness. That's intelligence operating under pressure. She looked at a dangerous situation clearly without flinching, and she made the smartest move available to her. She became the one person nobody thought to watch. And that's the thing about integrity that I keep coming back to. It doesn't require an audience. Iris kept that green notebook not because someone told her to, not because she was planning some dramatic confrontation. She kept it because she was the kind of person who documented things honestly, who refused to let the truth disappear even when no one else was paying attention to it. That's character. It doesn't announce itself. It just quietly persists. What I find remarkable about her is that she never stopped being competent even when competence went unrewarded. She ran the correction. She filed it under formatting test 4, and she left it there, ready, on the chance that it would one day matter. She didn't let bitterness make her careless. She didn't let being overlooked turn her into someone smaller than she actually was. That kind of persistence, the kind that keeps going not because it's seen, but because it's right, that's the backbone of everything worth building. I think about the moment Ronan finally said her name, just her first name in the dark in a room full of humming servers, and the way she didn't let herself dissolve into it. She acknowledged it, and then she immediately pivoted back to the problem, back to the work, back to the things she could actually control. That's what discipline looks like in real life, not dramatic declarations. Just the quiet choice, over and over, to keep your head when everything is uncertain. The coffee detail stays with me too. He knew. He'd known for a long time. Sometimes the people around us are paying more attention than they let on, and sometimes the most honest thing we can do is simply continue being ourselves clearly enough that eventually the room has no choice but to look. What Iris teaches me is that the life you build with integrity, intelligence, and the stubborn refusal to shrink, that life does not go unnoticed forever. It can't, not really. Truth has a way of surfacing, not because it fights its way up, but because everything false around it eventually falls away. She went back to work. That's the ending. That's also the whole point.